going to talk to you today is something that all of us has said once in a while in our lives. And this is the idea of Bahala Na. Or to be more specific, Bahala Na. When was the last time you asked yourself, Bahala Na? 5 seconds ago, just after midterm exams, especially after midterm exams. And when was the last time you asked yourself, Simba ko? Also midterm exams, I guess. All right. So, what I'm gonna talk to you today is the idea that these two phrases that we talk about every single time, Bahala na, Simba ko, are oftentimes misconstrued. And this is something to do with our encounter of the unknown and how we know the unknown. So I studied the unknown for the past 2 years, largely because I find it fascinating because of the paradoxes that it exists. On one hand, we are fascinated of what's out there. But at the same time, we're also very scared of it. And it is also, and to me, it's a personal experience. I've had my own shares and experiences as to how both the unknown is both fascinating and really scary. And the unknown is something that all of us, and even our ancestors, thousands and millions of years ago have encountered. The thing with the unknown that is very frightening is that it is a faceless figure. And since our hunter-gatherer societies, or hunter-gatherer ancestors, we try to put meaning, to try to put a face into the unknown. And the first instance, the first meaning of the unknown that our ancestors have created was religion. So if you've encountered many different kinds of religions in the history books and even today, that is essentially how we try to make sense of what is unknown, especially what is out there in the afterlife. What happens to us when we die? Will there be heaven, or will there be something else, or will we just corrode and the soil 6 feet under? And of course, knowing it is of course very scary. Now, to make sense or to simplify, because the unknown is a very complex thing to study, largely because it is unknown. So we'll try to piece it down together with a few lessons. So the first lesson that you've already had is that the unknown, is that first and foremost, we go crazy if we don't think about the unknown. And this is precisely why our ancestors before have developed religion as a way of making sense of the unknown. Now, this idea of feeling of the unknown is very strong, that it manifests in any kinds of experiences. Now, did you know that whenever we try to argue with friends that my religion will give me more chances of bringing me up to heaven than your religion, is actually very much similar on how we choose our numbers in a 649 lottery draw. So I'll give you the intuition behind this. So there was an experiment 10 years ago, about 20 years ago on this, and this is how it was done. Participants were asked to write down their favorite numbers in a lottery ticket. Now, the experimenter asked whether they would agree on exchanging their lottery tickets with another lottery ticket generated by a computer. And on top of that, the lottery ticket that would be exchanged would also have an added monetary incentive. Now the question right now here is, would participants be willing to trade off their lottery numbers in favor of another lottery number? So what experimenters found out, which was very curious, is that a lot of people actually do not want to trade their lottery tickets because of the fundamental intuition, or at least the idea, that they think that the probability that their lottery ticket would win is much higher compared to any other lottery ticket, when in fact, in reality, the probability of my lottery ticket from any kind of lottery ticket is actually just the same, which is in fact 1 in 14 million. So I don't know if it's a good or bad idea to join the lottery. So the idea of meaning is very important when we try to understand the unknown. And it also has negative consequences, especially when it comes to the loss of meaning in the unknown. So this is a second lesson that I'd like to impart to you. That if you think too much of the unknown, there's a higher tendency that you'd also go crazy. Now, the meaning of now what we're trying to understand right now is, where is this meaning coming from? Now, this is an important lesson that you guys also have to take into consideration, that the unknown, as it is not the same as knowing the unknown. The thing is that it's often confused by a lot of people, and I'll try to demonstrate to you guys why it's often confused and why it's very important to understand the difference between the unknown and knowing the unknown. So, as it turns out, when we say the unknown as it is or as itself, we're actually simply recognizing, or we are aware that it is the unknown. However, if we try to really understand it, then we go to a higher step of knowledge, which is knowing the unknown. And the thing is that it has recognizing the unknown and trying to know the unknown actually operates in two completely different psychological mechanisms. Namely, on one hand, we think about if we are aware about the unknown, it's largely governed by memory. And on the other hand, I don't know if it's clear, but on the other hand, knowing the unknown is governed by experience. Now, the thing with memory and experience is that they operate in two different ways. And in fact, they're actually quite opposite to each other. Memory on one hand has the capacity to store a lot of information. But the problem with memory is that it's a simpleton. It's very poor in trying to sift through the data. So the way memory tries to look at the world is simply as black or white. And more importantly, the problem with meaning is that it tries to put, the problem with memory is that it tries to put meaning on what is black and white. So oftentimes we think about black as bad, or we try to associate white as good. On the other hand, experience operates in a different mechanism. The way experience tries to see the world is simply through a trial and error process. And the thing with experience is that it's very sophisticated, but it does not have the ability to store a lot of information. So the way you think about experience is that it sees the world as shades of gray, whereas memory sees the world as black and white. And it can make a lot of difference in the way we make decisions or how we react to a lot of situations in life. So what we did in the lab is try to prove whether memory and experience actually is operating in the way we make decisions. So I study neuroscience, so precisely I try to study people's brains. So we targeted a particular area of the brain called the anterior cingulate cortex. It's somewhere located here, right in the frontal area of the brain. And what we did to do this experiment is an EEG experiment. So what we do here is that we invite participants in the lab. They put on an EEG cap. So these caps have electrodes, and they try to record signals in the brain. So what we found out is the following. First, it turns out that the anterior cingulate cortex was able to mimic or behave as if it was sifting through information as if it was an experience. So we were able to. So what was very interesting here with our results is that the brain signals matched exactly or mimicked the probabilities that people learned during the experiment. On the other hand, the same area of the brain, also was able to mimic memory, or to be more specific, it was able to. It was also if we try to look at the decisions. I mean, if it tried to sift through the data and by seeing it as simply as positive and negative, then we also was able to show the results, which mimic the paradox that we mentioned earlier. Now, another lesson that we can take off from the results of the experiment is that it turns out that we also confuse the difference between our confidence of what we perceive of the unknown and our certainty of what the unknown is. And in fact, confidence and certainty are often confused, but in fact, they operate under two completely different mechanisms. When we talk about confidence of the unknown, it actually involves a feeling of the unknown. Whereas when we talk about the certainty of the unknown, it's actually thinking or our belief of what the unknown is. And again, we try to see this, we try to test whether confidence and certainty actually, whether or not we can actually differentiate between confidence and certainty of the unknown. So this is a question that we ask our participants. Would you prefer to donate your organs to your loved ones, or would you like to play a game of Russian roulette? So, let's try to go back to our Bahala Na and Simba moments, all right? So which between the two, between donating your organs to your loved ones is a or playing a game of Russian roulette is a Bahala Na moment or a Simba moment? So if you want to, so it is possible that we can say that it's possible that we can think that Simpako, I want to donate, Simpako if I'm going to donate my organs to my loved ones, which is our attitude, which would be a little bit cruel. So what we try to do is try to differentiate these two attitudes. So in our experiment, what we did in the experiment is the following. So participants were asked if they want to know more information of the scenario between Russian roulette and organ donation. And after that, we asked them further whether they want to opt in or participate in the program or in the game. So what we found out in the experiment is that a lot of people in the Russian roulette scenario preferred to know more information over those who wanted to participate, who wanted to donate their organs. So on the other hand, we have a reverse here in the way they decided in their opt-in options. So most people in the Russian roulette scenario decided to opt out, regardless if they knew the information or not, whereas in the organ donation scenario, a lot of people decided to opt in, to save their loved ones. Now, what was interesting with the experiment is that if they knew the information, there was a significant decrease in their responses to opting in. So the way we differentiated, the way we found out in the experiment is that as far as the Russian roulette scenario, people were very unconfident of the unknown, but at the same time that they were sure of the losses associated with the unknown, and it's of course the imminent death. On the other hand, this was the opposite case in the organ donation scenario, where they were very confident that they want to participate in the experiment, but because of the difference in information, they were unsure of the unknown. So if you try to look at your intuitions again, Bahala Na and Simpako are actually opposite concepts. Where in the idea of Bahala Na is where you're confident of facing the unknown, but we're not exactly sure how we're gonna deal with it. Whereas it's the opposite case in Simpako, whereas we're very sure what the imminent danger is up ahead, and at the same time we're not confident about it. So this understanding, or trying to differentiate this misconception, is very important in how we look at everyday life. Now consider, for example, families living in coastal communities. Now here's the question. why do families continue to live in coastal communities when in fact that they're more prone to any kinds of natural disasters that besets them? Now, if you try to think about it in terms of Bahala Na and Simba, the idea here is that they're pretty much confident of facing the unknown, which is that they're pretty much confident of the disasters that they think that they will face at the end of the day, that they'll survive, but they're not exactly sure whether or not after the disaster they'll be still alive. So this brings us to the last lesson of how we're supposed to deal with the unknown. So it's often said by many of us that we only will live once, or you only live once, or we put a hashtag into it. So the best way in trying to deal with the unknown is, number one, we should try to accept that the unknown exists. And number two, if we want to live through life, not getting scared of the unknown, we should also try to know more about it. Now, if we try to live life, in trying to live life, I would like to go again to refer back to personal experience. So I started in economics and jumped to psychology and then to neuroscience and then a lot of topics involved. Because for me, this is the part of the unknown that I'm very fascinated of. Like, there are a lot of things in life that's very interesting. And I hope that to all of us, our current situations, our present dispositions should not limit us in trying to embrace life as it is, especially that life is in fact unknown, or the world that we face in is in fact unknown. So at the end of the day, if you want to try to face life or with much gusto, rather than saying Bahala Na, you have to be firm and say Bahala Na. The difference in inflections will all make the difference. How we approach life and knowing how to deal with the unknown. So thank you very much.